guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Evan Thomas of ASMR Money Mentor. Relax while I'm getting ready. Relax. 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 Hopefully you had a nice weekend, and hopefully you're ready for a new set of episodes this week. Again, on ASMR Money Mentor. You know, before we get started, I just have to say, I like to share my money thoughts and just thoughts in general. And I was away this past week, and I got back to my condo here, and I was really frustrated. You know how I told you guys that they're working on our roofs, and in some of the past episodes you could hear them. Well, they're going to continue this week, so they're not working today because I'm producing this on a Saturday, even though I think this episode is dropping on a Monday. But anyway, that's just, it's great that my roof can be replaced, and that's wonderful, but it's a little bit inconvenient. And the other thing is that, I think I've told you I live in Florida, and at least once a year, maybe twice a year, they trim our palm trees, and I happen to have a palm tree right above my patio. You've probably seen my patio on some other episodes. And, it's so funny because I've lived here for 21 years, and a lot of the tree trimming companies will put a tarp over the first floor unit screens so that when the palms hit the screen, it doesn't damage it. But for whatever reason, this company doesn't do that. But they reimburse you or have the screens fixed, which I think is really silly, don't you? Don't you think they should be preventative rather than reactive? Like proactive rather than reactive? Anyway, so yesterday I got home, I walked in the door, looked out on the patio, and there's a big palm in my patio that tore through the screen, and the screen needs to be replaced. So, needless to say, I'm a little perturbed. Anyway, grab a beverage, and we'll get started here in just a minute. I just needed to rant. I'm sure things happen like that for you guys as well, right? Whether you rent or you own a place like I do. Cheers. Yeah, that was somebody upstairs that just dropped something on the floor. So, I'm a little irritated today. Anyway, the show must go on, right? So, again, I hope that you guys are all relaxed. Or hopefully you will be by the end of this episode. I've been sharing with you that part of the theme is back to basics. And last week, I talked about the young couple that makes really good income for their ages in their late 20s. And I talked about how with dedication they can save quite a bit of money every single year. Either save and or invest, depending on which is better for them. Remember, we need to know what to do in the year that we're in it. But collectively, they had that big ability to save quite a bit of money. And so, today I want to talk a little bit about single people and how they may have special many of you are very young, and so if I could go back in time, there's something I want to share with you that I wish I knew. So come back in a couple days. And then on Friday of this week, I want to talk about the reality is that life changes and your money must change as well. Because when you're looking at a chunk of time of 15 years, remember, 5, 5, and 5, it seems like it goes by quickly, and we can say that and we can forecast into the future, but it's really a long time. And so I want to talk about the reality of going through all of those years and what it takes to build wealth in every single one of those years. So, back then to the content of today's episode. In line with being cognizant of back to basics, I want to talk about all of you that are single right now. Single people, I think, and I can base this on my own experience, because all of the wealth that I've shared with you guys, that I have built from when I was 40 until age 58 now, at a $1.5 million net worth is, and actually, you know what, I think it bumped up to 1.6 million. I'll give you those numbers coming up, but the market so far in 2024 has been really good. And I think I'm bumping right up against the 1.6 anyway. Everything I've been able to accomplish, with the exception, remember, for those of you that have been around, I did have a small inheritance, and that inheritance was $22,000. My grandfather passed away, and he willed about $22,000 to all of us. And with the exception of that, all of the wealth I built was on my own income and nobody else's. It was not a joint effort, financially speaking. So everything I shared with you guys from episode 1 through 62, remember, which brings us up to the current year. And by the way, if you're new, go to my playlist and you'll see that. Just click the button. You can watch them sequentially without even having to queue it up. The playlist is great for that. All of that was done with my income alone. So, for those of you that are single, I want to give you hope. And whether or not you stay single, and or maybe you find somebody and you have a relationship, I do truly think that all of us should think about money from a single person viewpoint, if you will. Now, that doesn't mean that you might not find somebody and combine your money into a joint account, and maybe if you live together, you pay expenses from a joint account. And for those of you that are truly married, then of course it would be, your money as a couple, because you file taxes that way, etc. But I think, we have to be reality-based and not just live in a fantasy. And we know historically that, unfortunately, divorce rates are relatively high. And so some of you, may be single, you may get married in your lifetime, and you may get a divorce. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. And so I like to encourage people to always think about their money from a single person viewpoint. Again, that doesn't mean that you're not going to find somebody and, combine your efforts. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you think about your money and your budget, there's nothing wrong with thinking in terms of the potential for you perhaps being single again. And if that were to be the case, would you and could you have the means not only to sustain yourself and pay all of your expenses, but also hopefully position yourself so that you can also then then have the ability to have that OTPSI that I talked about last week, the open to buy, saving, and investing. I really think that all of us should be thinking that way, and that single people may have special needs in above and beyond that as well. But that was just my first thought. But as far as, single people having special monetary needs, I don't know if, single people have special needs. I think that, there is something that I wanted to share with you, that I know that for many of the years that I was single, it was easier, from 40 to 55 when I was building my wealth. In the years that I was truly single, it was easier to hunker down and to save more money. Because think about it, if you have a significant other in your life, chances are you may want to spend more money, but you would also most likely have a dual income as well, like we talked about last week. So the net result of that potentially could be the same as if you were single. You might spend more. If you're in a relationship, if you both work, which would be the same as if you were single and didn't spend as much because you didn't have as much income, if that makes sense. But I do truly believe that, and I've heard people talk about this, that single people, because there aren't those pressures of being in a relationship, that single people do have an ability, if they listen to themselves and if they don't become frivolous or careless with their spending, they could save more because nobody's watching. I remember years ago I was saving quite a bit of money, like on a weekend. Remember I told you guys I would stay home and watch the Susie Orman show on CNBC at 9 o'clock? How boring is that? Or if I did go out, I would record it and then watch it later. But I made that part of the fun, part of the opportunity to not spend as much over the weekend because I did stay home. Or if I did go out, I may spend less. Again, if you're single, you have nobody really to answer to, financially speaking. I know that sounds silly, but there aren't those pressures. And it's a lot easier because, again, nobody is looking and nobody cares. And that gives you an opportunity to really ramp up your savings. And for those of you that are behind the 8 ball like I was, and I'm going to talk about this later this week, for those of you that are new, I was broke at 40. And that scenario I talked about last week for that young couple that was making quite a bit of money, average incomes for their age, but they were disciplined, they were intentional with their money, they were able, to save quite a bit. So I'll be talking more about that later this week as well. So I may have lost my train of thought in the last few sentences there, but that's okay. Anyway, to wrap up this episode, those of you that are single out there, keep going, keep saving, position yourself to a place where you may no longer be single, but leverage those years now when you're young and you're single to save, because you know what? You could then open up some of that money to spend on experiences with that person that enters your life. Whereas when you were single, you didn't want to spend